Welcome to Paskvan Podcasts. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps this channel.
Okay, let's set the scene. Picture Long Island, December 2010. It's cold out there, right?
Yep.
That wind whipping across the barrier beaches. Ocean Parkway feels utterly empty, desolate.
Yeah, very isolated. And Gilgo Beach, usually just this quiet, almost forgotten strip of coast. Suddenly, it's the focus of this intense police search. But it wasn't what people might think initially.
Right, it wasn't like they were expecting a major crime scene like this.
Exactly. The search had a really specific goal. The police, they weren't looking for some phantom serial killer, not at first. They were looking for one missing woman, Shannan Gilbert.
Shannan Gilbert. She disappeared months before, back in May 2010.
That's right. After this absolutely terrifying 911 call she made from Oak Beach, which is, this nearby gated community, her vanishing just completely baffled the local police.
So they bring in the specialists, cadaver dogs, hoping to find Shannan in those dunes, the marsh grass. Maybe finally give her family some answers. But what the dogs found, well, it wasn't the end of one mystery. It turned out to be the horrifying start of something much, much bitter. A decade-long nightmare, really.
They follow the scent deep into the brush off Ocean Parkway, and they start finding bodies.
Not just one. 4 women, pulled from the sand. And the way they were found, carefully wrapped in this heavy burlap, partially buried.
And the chilling part, none of them were Shannan Gilbert.
None of them.
Yeah.
This discovery right there, that's what launched the LISK investigation. The Long Island serial killer, that terrifying name.
It's the moment Long Island, and really the whole country, realized there was a killing field hidden right there. Just in plain sight, almost.
Absolutely. So today, we're going to really unpack this. We'll go through the evidence piece by piece, look at what tied these victims together.
And we have to talk about the failures, the massive institutional problems that let this killer operate for so long.
Definitely. And then the resolution. How technology finally brought a suspect into focus, but how it still leaves these huge, profound questions unanswered. Is it really over?
Okay, let's zero in on that first discovery. December 2010. Finding 4 bodies basically clustered together within just a quarter-mile stretch. That screams pattern.
It does. It suggests method, organization. This wasn't random disposal. These women, they became known as the Gilgo 4, and they were really the core of the initial investigation.
And who were they?
Well, the first one found was Maureen Brainerd Barnes. She'd actually been missing since 2007. Then Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. They all disappeared between 2007 and 2010.
And the immediate link, the tragic connection, they were all young women working as escorts.
Yes. Often using online platforms, sites like Craigslist, Backpage, places that don't even exist in the same way anymore. The killer clearly targeted a specific group.
Vulnerable women, whose disappearances, let's be honest, often didn't get the same level of attention from law enforcement initially.
Sadly, that's often the case. These women, they didn't know each other in life. Their lives only intersected in this horrible way, in death, wrapped up, discarded like trash, just yards from a busy parkway.
The reaction must have been immense. Panic.
Oh, absolutely. It shattered Long Island's sense of safety. I mean, imagine driving that road every day to the beach, to work, and then realizing bodies had been lying there, hidden for years, potentially. It exposed this terrifying hidden reality just beneath the surface.
And the location itself, Ocean Parkway?
Yeah.
It's key, isn't it, that geography?
Critically important. You've got this narrow strip, Atlantic Ocean on one side, protected marshland, thick dunes, heavy brush on the other.
It's remote, but not too remote. Accessible.
Exactly. Secluded enough for someone to pull over, do something awful under the cover of darkness, but easy to get to. For a killer, it's almost ideal.
But for investigators,
a nightmare, a logistical nightmare. And this geography is crucial because the Gilgo 4, those first 4 bodies, they were just the beginning.
Right. The search expands into 2011.
It does, and they start finding more remains, stretching east, stretching west along the parkway, even crossing into Nassau County.
So the scope just explodes. How many in total?
The remains of at least 10 individuals, possibly 11, recovered in that period. But here's where it gets really complicated. This is the pivot point. The detail that fueled debate for a decade.
The condition of the remains.
Precisely. The disposal methods were disturbingly different. The Gilgo 4 were found intact, wrapped neatly in burlap, relatively close together, organized.
But the others...
A completely different picture. Much more gruesome in some cases. We had other sets of remains, including a toddler, an unidentified Asian male, believed to be wearing women's clothing.
And crucially, victims who were dismembered.
Yeah.
Severely.
Parts of one victim, Jane Doe number 6, were found near Gilgo, but other parts of her body had been discovered years earlier, way over in Manorville. That's over 40 miles away.
40 miles. And years earlier.
Right. So this dismemberment, the scattering of remains across totally different locations like Manorville and different parts of the parkway, it raised this central terrifying question.
One killer or more.
Exactly. Was this one killer who just drastically changed his methods, going from organized wrapping to violent dismemberment over years? Or was this isolated stretch of parkway just a convenient dumping ground used by multiple, maybe unrelated predators operating across Long Island?
And the location itself could support either theory?
It could. The isolation provides cover, anonymity for the killer or killers. But for the police, that long stretch of coast, battered by wind and waves, evidence degrades incredibly fast.
Sam shifts, tides come in, animals.
Scavenging animals, the elements. It just consumes evidence. It explains, in part, why it took over a decade for those critical forensic breakthroughs to finally happen.
Okay, so the crimes themselves are horrific. But the response, the official response, that's another layer to this tragedy, isn't it?
It really is. The investigation was hampered. You could even say sabotaged right from the beginning. Internal politics, corruption, it all played a devastating role long before any arrest.
Where did it start to go wrong institutionally?
Well, the primary failure point was jurisdiction. The bodies were found in Suffolk County, so the Suffolk County Police Department took the lead. That makes sense on the surface.
But the scale of this, it felt bigger than one county.
Absolutely. A potential serial killer operating over years, using technology burner phones that crosses county lines, maybe even state lines. This screamed for federal help, for the FBI.
And Suffolk County said no.
They didn't just say no. They actively resisted, dug their heels in, denied the FBI access to crime scene data, held back key evidence. They effectively shut the door on resources that might have cracked the case years sooner.
Why? Why would they do that?
It seems like a mix of things. Professional pride, maybe. An ingrained culture of secrecy within the department. And critically, maybe a fear of losing control. This is a huge politically charged case.
But the cost of that resistance?
Measured in lost time, lost leads, evidence growing colder by the day, and potentially, more victims if the killer's still active. Public trust just eroded completely.
And then there's the shadow of outright corruption looming over the whole thing.
Right. And that really centers on one figure, James Burke. He became the Suffolk County Police Chief in 2012. Just as the LISK investigation should have been ramping up with perhaps renewed focus.
And he was known for being hostile to outside agencies.
Very much so. His leadership basically cemented that hardline policy. No FBI involvement in LISK, period.
But the real kicker is what happened to Burke later.
It's just stomach-turning irony. Burke, the man in charge of finding who murdered these vulnerable women, these sex workers, he was later arrested, convicted, and imprisoned.
But not for anything related to LISK, right?
No, entirely separate. He assaulted a man who had stolen a duffel bag from his police vehicle, a bag containing sex toys and pornography. Then he orchestrated this massive cover-up within the department to hide it all.
Wow. So the police chief investigating the murders of sex workers is involved in his own scandal involving, related things, and a cover-up.
The optics were just devastating. It suggested a deep rot. The same police culture that protected Burke, that enabled his cover-up. That's the same culture that was stonewalling the LISK investigation. He was convicted of conspiracy to obstruct justice. It showed the problem was systemic.
How did this affect the victims' families? They must have felt completely abandoned.
Oh, absolutely betrayed. This systemic dysfunction, the corruption, the apparent bias, it translated directly into how they felt their daughters were being treated, dismissed.
Viewed as disposable because of their work.
That's the word families used. They felt the police just didn't care as much because they were escorts. There's that awful anecdote, right? A mother being told quite coldly that her daughter lived a risky lifestyle.
As if that justifies anything, as if it absolves the police of their duty.
Exactly. It's victim-blaming, institutionalized, and frankly, that kind of attitude, it protects the killer. If law enforcement doesn't prioritize marginalized victims, those victims become easier targets.
So the families had to fight back themselves.
They had no choice. They became activists, very vocal. They realized the system wasn't going to fix itself. They went to the media, held rallies, constantly demanded answers, demanded accountability.
They kept the story alive.
They absolutely did. Their pressure was probably the single biggest factor preventing the LISK case from just fading away, buried under all that bureaucracy and corruption. They were just fighting for justice for their daughters. They were fighting for the right to even be heard by the people supposed to be helping them.
It feels crucial always to come back to Shannan Gilbert. Her disappearance is what started this whole thing. She's the catalyst.
She absolutely is.
Yeah.
And her case, even now, after the arrest, it remains the most ambiguous, the most frustrating piece of this entire puzzle.
Remind us of the details. May 1st, 2010.
Right. She was a young escort, traveled out to Oak Beach for a client. But in the early hours of the morning, something went terribly wrong. She made that frantic 911 call.
How long did it last?
23 minutes. 23 agonizing minutes. You can hear the terror in her voice on the released portions of the tape.
Screaming, "Someone is after me."
Yes. Running through the community, banging on doors, pleading for help, saying she feared for her life. And then she vanished into the marshland near that gated community.
Her family, from the start, believed she was murdered. That call was proof for them.
Absolutely. They insisted she was running from a killer. So when the Gilgo Four were discovered that December, everyone, especially the family, expected Shannan's remains to be found nearby, confirming their worst fears.
But they weren't. Not then.
No, it took another year. Her remains were finally found in December 2011, but not with the others. About half a mile from where she made that 911 call, deep in the marsh.
And crucially, her remains weren't wrapped in burlap.
Correct. Not wrapped, not placed with the Gilgo Four. This difference, the location, the condition, the lack of burlap, this created the core conflict, the central disagreement that lasted for years.
So what was the official cause of death?
Officially ruled undetermined. The police narrative suggested accidental death. Maybe she got lost in the marsh, panicked, succumbed to the elements, drowning, exposure, maybe exacerbated by drugs or a medical issue.
A narrative that conveniently removes her from the LISK count.
Exactly. It separates her case from the serial killer investigation. But her family and independent experts they hired completely rejected that.
They pointed back to the 911 call.
Primarily, yes. A woman screaming someone is after her isn't typically having an accidental drowning. Plus, their independent autopsies noted findings they felt were consistent with strangulation, things the official report seemed to downplay or ignore.
And this is where the police narrative feels self-serving, perhaps, connected to those institutional failures we talked about.
Well, you have to consider the implications.
Yeah.
If Shannan was running from LISK right after making a 911 call from inside a known location, a gated community, think about what that exposes.
Failures in the initial 911 response. Failure to secure that area as a potential crime scene immediately.
Catastrophic failures. It would have highlighted massive police incompetence right at the very beginning of the whole sequence. Ruling her death undetermined, an accident. It served a purpose. It contained the scandal. It limited the scope of their own failures.
So the big question lingers. Was Shannan Gilbert's death just a tragic accident in the marsh? Or was she the first warning, the panicked tip-off to everything else?
A warning that police, perhaps blinded by their own need to control the narrative and avoid accountability, effectively dismissed. Did that dismissal allow the killer, whoever it was, more time?
Her case still isn't officially linked to the main charges. It just hangs there, an unresolved injustice.
A devastating symbol of it, yes.
So after those initial discoveries in 2010, 2011, the case seemed to go cold for a long time. Years of silence, really.
It did. The mid-2010s were marked by stagnation. Lots of theories floating around. Was it a local cop, someone with military experience, given the burlap wrapping? Was it definitely multiple killers? But no real breakthroughs.
What changed? How did it suddenly heat up again after almost a decade?
Technology, mostly. And perhaps a renewed political will to solve it. Law enforcement was initially limited by the tools they had back in 2010. The evidence was old, degraded.
But forensic science marches on.
Yeah, it does. The big turning point came around 2022 with the formation of a new, dedicated Gilgo Beach task force. This time, crucially, it included the FBI, state police, and local departments finally working together seamlessly.
So that jurisdictional barrier finally came down.
Yes, and they brought modern tools to bear on that old evidence. New DNA techniques, forensic genealogy, advanced digital forensics.
Digital forensics, like the burner phones.
Exactly. That became a huge focus. The killer had used multiple burner phones to contact several victims before they disappeared. These phones were used briefly, then ditched, designed to be untraceable.
But they still leave a trace, don't they? Cell tower data.
They do. Even burner phones ping cell towers. Using sophisticated analysis, investigators could map where these specific phones were most consistently hitting towers around the times the victims were contacted and disappeared.
Triangulation, essentially.
Sort of, yeah. More advanced now, but that's the basic idea. And a pattern emerged. The phones used to contact Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman. They kept pinging towers in one specific geographic area.
Rare.
Massapequa Park, a quiet, very typical suburban town in Nassau County, right next door to Suffolk County.
Okay, so they have a geographic hotspot. What else?
They went back to old physical evidence logs, including a witness statement from way back in 2010. Someone had seen a distinctive vehicle near where Amber Costello, one of the Gilgo Four, was last seen.
What kind of vehicle?
A dark-colored first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche. A specific type of truck.
So they cross-reference owners of that specific truck model.
Within that specific geographic hotspot, Massapequa Park, identified through the burner phone data. And one name starts to surface. Rex Hoyerman.
Rex Hoyerman. And who was he?
On the surface, completely unremarkable. A middle-aged architect, married, kids, lived in this modest house in Massapequa Park his whole life, basically. Commuted into Manhattan for work every day.
Just a guy. A neighbor.
Exactly. The absolute picture of suburban normalcy. A bit abrasive, apparently, but nothing that screamed serial killer.
But investigators start digging deeper.
And the facade just crumbles. They build this chain of evidence linking him directly to the Gilgo Four, and it's strong. Very specific.
Okay, walk us through it. The truck.
First, he owned a green first-generation Chevy Avalanche, matched the witness description perfectly. He was registered as the owner during the time frame of the murders.
Oh, yeah, okay. What else? The digital trail.
Huge. They got warrants for his online activity, and they found years of obsessive, disturbing internet searches.
What kind of searches?
Things that paint a picture of a deeply disturbed mind. Extensive searches for violent, degrading pornography, sadism, torture, but also chillingly specific searches about the LISK case itself.
He was following his own case.
Obsessively. Monitoring media coverage, reading articles, searching for updates, and the most damning part, he searched for things like, why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been caught? And combinations of his own name with Gilgo Beach killer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredibly incriminating, almost like taunting.
Or maybe just a desperate need to see if they were closing in, to track his own notoriety. The digital evidence was powerful, showing motive, mindset, obsession. But they needed something physical.
The final link.
DNA. The final link. Classic police work, really. Surveillance. They tailed Hoyerman in Manhattan, saw him toss a pizza box into a public trash can outside his office in early 2023.
And they grabbed it.
They retrieved it, specifically the leftover pizza crusts, sent them to the lab.
Yeah.
And the DNA profile extracted from mitochondrial DNA on those crusts was a match. A direct match to mitochondrial DNA from a male hair found on the burlap used to wrap Megan Waterman, one of the Gilgo Four.
Mitochondrial DNA, so it links through the maternal line, right? Confirms the lineage.
Exactly. To be absolutely sure, they also used forensic genetic genealogy, uploaded the profile to public databases, found distant relatives sharing those unique genetic markers, built a family tree, and it all pointed directly back to Rex Hoyerman.
So they had the truck, the burner phone ping centered on his location, the disturbing internet searches, and now irrefutable DNA.
The whole package. It all converged. The vehicle, the digital obsession, the DNA. It gave them what they needed for the arrest warrant.
July 2023, he's arrested.
Arrested outside his Manhattan office. Charged with the murders of the Gilgo Four. Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello.
And the reaction? Just shock.
Profound shock.
Yeah.
The alleged monster wasn't some drifter, some shadowy figure living off the grid. He was this ordinary, if maybe unpleasant professional man, living right there in the heart of suburbia, hiding in plain sight for over a decade.
So Hoyerman's arrest felt like this huge moment. Finally, maybe some justice. But it's critical, isn't it, to stress that this might not be the end of the story.
That's the absolutely crucial caveat, yes. He's been charged, currently, only with the murders of the Gilgo Four.
Which forces us right back to that earlier question. What about the other remains, those other 6 or 7 sets found along Ocean Parkway?
Exactly. We have to confront that multi-killer debate again. The other victims. They include other women, the toddler, the unidentified male, and crucially, those dismembered victims, the ones whose remains were found near Gilgo and 40 miles away in Manorville.
Is Hoyerman responsible for them too? Did he just have radically different methods for different victims? No. Or is someone else still out there?
That difference in disposal, it's just so stark, it's hard to ignore. The Gilgo Four, wrapped, contained, relatively organized. The others, particularly the dismembered ones scattered across counties, That suggests a different kind of violence, a different logistical approach.
It strains belief, maybe, that one person would shift so dramatically between those methods.
It does stretch credulity for many investigators. To go from careful burial to violent dismemberment and scattering, it feels fundamentally different. So the very real, very frightening possibility remains.
That Ocean Parkway was used by more than one predator.
Yes, a convenient, isolated dumping ground. And Horman might only account for one part of that horror. The investigations into those other victims, the Manorville Doe, the other Jane Does, the toddler, the unidentified male, those are still officially open. A terrifying shadow still hangs over this case.
And beyond the question of other killers, there's the legacy of how this was handled initially, the mistrust.
Absolutely. Those years lost to Suffolk County's resistance to the FBI, the whole James Burke scandal, it has a lasting impact. It reinforces that painful reality. When the system protects itself, when it dismisses marginalized victims, justice gets delayed. Sometimes maybe justice is denied entirely for some.
This case is now cemented in true crime history, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's become this symbol. The terror of a killer hidden in plain sight for years, maybe protected inadvertently or not by institutional failings. It changed how people on Long Island view their own communities, that sense of suburban safety.
Knowing that unimaginable darkness could be hiding right next door, behind the most ordinary-looking house.
Gilgo Beach will forever be linked with that chilling idea. And the reminder that finding justice requires not just technology and persistence, but also painful institutional honesty and accountability.
So, the arrest brings a measure of justice, especially for the families of the Gilgo Four. But it doesn't tie up all the loose ends. The deepest questions, like you said, they often stay buried, just like the bodies once were.
Precisely.
So, for you, the listener, maybe the thought to carry away is this. What does it really mean for our society when seeking justice also requires this exhausting fight against the very institutions meant to provide it, when you have to demand accountability before you can even get answers?
And specifically, when Shannan Gilbert's death, the case that started everything, that first terrified cry for help still sits outside the main charges, officially unsolved, officially separate. What does that separation mean?
Does it mean a second killer potentially walks free? Or was her case just too inconvenient, too politically damaging for the authorities to fully integrate into their final narrative of success? What other secrets are still out there, waiting along that lonely stretch of highway, even with one man finally behind bars?